Hi, everybody. Craig Shacklett from URComped here, and I've got such a special treat for everyone, including myself. We're talking to a true pioneer in the gaming industry, John Acres, founder of Acres Gaming, and a few of John's many accomplishments. He began his career in 1972 as a slot technician, has since become a major innovator, holding over 250 patents, which is, I mean, that's got to put you in the top 0.01% of patent holders. So we'll definitely touch on that a little later. Founded multiple successful companies, including Acres Gaming, which was acquired for $143 million by IGT. His groundbreaking contributions, such as the first electronic loyalty system in progressive jackpots, earned him induction into the American Gaming Association's Gaming Hall of Fame in 2016. John Acres, welcome.
Thank you, Craig. Glad to be here.
So why don't we go back to 1972 or even before that if you want, but how did you get started in the casino industry?
Well, I grew up in Indiana, and I was 19. My wife had just graduated from high school. We got married about a week after, and it was the Vietnam War era. I had joined the Air Force, and I was stationed out here at Nellis in Las Vegas. So we got in a car and got married. We got married one night and started driving for Las Vegas the next. And the last thing my parents asked is, Las Vegas, where were you buying groceries? Their view was that there was nothing here but casinos and mafia and bodies in the desert. Of course, that's not at all true. But back before the internet, it was really hard to know what things around the corner were like. It's really a very difficult thing to remember how isolated we were back then. But Las Vegas has been a fantastic place. Because I was in the Air Force, I was an airman. I was making $287 a month. And when we got out here and realized that we couldn't afford housing that we wanted, my wife and I both got part-time jobs. Well, she got a full-time job selling shoes at JCPenney's, and I got a job fixing radios at an electronics shop. And the guy brought in his radio. I fixed it, and he says, "Why don't you come down to the casino and see if you can do something with our sound system?" And I went down and did that, and he goes, "What do you know about slot machines?" And I said, "I don't know anything." He said, "Well, let's learn." And that's how it all started.
No kidding. So were you still working at the Air Force at that point, or you had gotten through your...
Nope, I was still in the Air Force, but it was the Vietnam War was starting to wind down a bit. Mm-hmm. And so you worked pretty much a 9-to-5 job, very regular hours by then. So it was pretty easy to carve out time to go work elsewhere.
Got it. So you start working at a casino. Now, was this downtown Las Vegas? Was it on the early strip, or where was it?
It was on the strip, right across the street from the Stardust, but behind a gas station. It was a little tiny place. It had about 500 machines, but it turned out that the guy I worked for, Norman Little, was just a tremendous marketer, and I learned so much from him. But he had the first dollar machines in the state, which in '72 was a high denomination. That'd be like $7 or $8 a play now. And what they did to attract players is they put out coupon books all through gas stations and outlets all through the Western United States. And you'd open up this booklet, and it'd be, $10 at the free play, free beef stew, free photograph, free this, free that. And people would buy into that, and they would come over and they would stand in line on a Friday and Saturday night for hours waiting for a free photo or waiting for a free 3-minute long distance phone call. Because back then, long distance phone calls were relatively expensive. And I made circuits for keeping people to 3 minutes on the phone. We took a payphone and took it apart and made it so that if you've been talking for 2.5 minutes, the lights in the ceiling in the phone booth started flashing, and at 3 minutes, it just cut you off. But that was my first circuit invention, and then I started working on slot machines. And the thing that was really important for me was working with Norman, and he explained early on that a slot machine is a device of magic. On the front side, it is purely emotional. It's the player's desire to win, the player's desire to escape their everyday life, all those fantasies, dreams, and ambitions are exuded by the player into the machine. And then on the backside of the machine, it's all about economics. It's all about profit, right? So you have a business side and a magic side to this game. And he said, when you're designing a machine, you never want to be the customer looking in. He said, don't think about that. Think about you're inside the machine looking out. You're watching that customer's face, because all the games and their effectiveness are played out in their minds between their two ears. Doesn't matter what's shown on the screen. What matters is, what does that player feel? And he went on to say, as Steve Wynn had echoed very well, that we're really here to sell players self-esteem, to help them feel better about themselves than when they arrive, to feel like a winner because they hit a $100 jackpot, but to completely forget about the $200 they spent to win it. That's the magic of the casino.
That's so well said. And you mentioned Steve Wynn, one of my favorite, again, entrepreneur like you in the gaming industry. Now, back then, 1972, who were some of those big names that you saw? Obviously, you got to learn under a genius, Norman Little. Was it Binion? Was was Caesar's Palace starting to get built then? Or what was kind of the scene at that point?
Caesar's Palace had been built. Jay Sarno had built it a couple of years prior. It was nothing like what it is now. Yeah. But Jackie Gone was big. Benny Binion, Jack Binion, Michael Gone, a variety of those. When I came here, Steve Wynn had not yet begun his exertion on the strip, but it started later on. But I was very fortunate in that the town was small, and I was 19, 20 years old, curious, and a lot of people enjoyed talking to curious kids. So Norman would take me to lunch with Benny Binion and Jackie Gone and all these guys, and we would talk about what gaming was. And I remember with Benny Binion, I said, what's the secret to running a good casino? He goes, well, he says, one of them is, remember this. He said, people hate to be fooled. If you trick them, if you lie to them, if you fool them, they will resent you. But people love a chance to fool themselves, and that's the business I'm in. and he gave us the example, his paycheck wheel. Back then, people got paid once a week, got a paper check. You have to take it to the bank and cash it. Banks close at 5 p.m. You usually get your paycheck at the end of the shift, so you'd have to wait. You'd have to take time out of work or send your wife or find a way to get into the bank. And so Benny was one of the first people to put up a paycheck wheel. And he says, come down to the casino, cash your check, absolutely free. We'll give you cash. And if you cash your check here, you get to spin this wheel, which is like a big six wheel.
Yeah.
And you might win double your paycheck, or you might win a free bottle of beer. You're guaranteed to win something, most likely a bottle of beer, but it could be up to double your paycheck. So the consumer gets to think to themselves, why would I bother going to a bank? It's hard to get to. And they're not going to give me double. They're not going to give me a free bottle of beer. I'll go down to Binion's, and it's the responsible thing to do. Now, you come in, you spin the wheel, you get a bottle of beer. There you are sitting with a bottle of beer. You've got cash in your hand, and there's a slot machine in front of you. Now, no one's making you play. No one said that you have to play, but nature takes its course, and a significant percentage of those people will start playing the machines. They'll justify staying there because beer is only 50 cents a bottle and every place else is $1. So, hey, I'll buy my second one here. Before they know it, they spend an hour and a half, and then they go home. But that was his example of, I can't lie to you. I can't tell you you will win here, but I can give you opportunities. And then you can kind of tell yourself that you might win gambling tonight. So that's the basis.
So when you're at the table as a young kid, obviously talented, be able to build these things, and you're sitting at these titans, legends in the gaming industry. Did you think someday I'm going to own a casino? Was that your early aspirations, like to do that, or did you tell me about that? And I'd love to get into like your entrepreneurial journey, as it were.
Casino ownership never really interested me that much. It was more about casino technology ownership. First of all, there were a lot of people that already knew how to do it, and I wasn't one of them. And you got to have capital. You got to have a lot of stuff. If you're building the technology, then you can start with less. And for me, because I grew up liking electronics and I taught myself a lot, I was relatively capable there. So I could use my strengths best by thinking about casino technology as opposed to casino operations.
And so you're working for Mr. Little, learned a lot. You developed the payphone circuit, and at what point did you, like, when was it like some click where you're like, okay, I got something here, I'm going to develop this, I'm going to launch my own company? What was that? What were those steps?
Well, the precursor to it was Norman he was always talking to me about players and what got them to play and what got them to stay. And one of his favorite promotions was to watch people on the casino floor playing. We only had 400 or 500 machines, so you could see everything. And if he saw you playing at a game for a while and the money in front of you was dwindling, because back then there were no credit meters on the game. It was coins in, coins out. So you had a big bowl sitting down at the bottom of the machine. Either it had a lot of coins in it or it didn't, right? Yeah. And you could tell where somebody was. So if you were sitting there and your coin bowl was almost empty, and by whatever method Norman thought you might have money left in your pocket, he'd come over and say, "Hi, I'm Norman. I'm from British Columbia. Where are you from?" And you say, "I'm Craig. I'm from Dallas," or whatever. Yeah. And he would have like a 10-second spiel with you. And if he judged in that time that you might be a worthy spender, he would take out his keys from his pocket, open up the slot machine, and the player sitting there going, "What's going on?" Flips his coin switch a couple, 3 times, just like putting money in, pull the handle, and then he could actually hold the reels, because these were mechanical reels. This was before the electronics, and he could line up a jackpot. And he would line up anywhere from $20 to $100 jackpot, depending on what he thought of you. He would close the door. He had this timing down just perfectly, right when the money started coming in. Now, you're sitting there going, "What just happened? I didn't even know these things opened up." Yeah. And this guy made a jackpot appear out of nowhere for me. And boom, I've got this money. And Norman would say, "I'm sorry our casino gave you such bad luck at the first place. I hope you play better." And he would walk away. And then he would stand over in a corner, and he would let me always stand with him. And we would watch to see what that player did. Most players, 80% of them, would take that money and they start playing it back. And 10, 15 minutes later, they've gone through all that money and they've reached into their pocket and taken out more. That's a success. That's a win, right? About 20% of the players, though, would put a couple coins in and they'd look around like, is anybody watching? And it was almost like they thought they were committing a crime. They would grab the money and head for the door. They're going to get away with that money, right? Because their self-esteem is enriched by saying, "I took advantage of this guy." And Norman, he said to me, he says, "If you could ever figure out a way to design a system that could tell us who's going to stay and play and who's going to bolt for the door," he says, "you're going to have a lot of success." And so I decided that's what I wanted to do, was to build a system that could tell the difference. Now, we were way far away from that in technology, but we did start with the idea of tracking players. I came up with the idea of measuring players in a more automated way. Our first effort was to build ticket dispensers for Steve Wynn on the side of his slot machine. It was just like the old Chuck E. Cheese's or Dave and Buster's little orange tickets. Every $50 you put into the machine, you get a ticket out. And these tickets would start stacking up in a string. They would just be hanging from the game. And attendants would go up and say, "Hey, Craig, let me take your tickets and store them for you. You don't want to lose them." You'd say, No, don't take my tickets. Otherwise, if you take them away, nobody knows what a great slot player I am.
Yeah.
Now, all that says is $50, $50, $50, $50. But they took pride in that. And that was this tremendous revelation that pride was really an important motivator. But the problem with those things were that we kept running out of paper. It was hard for casinos to keep those things refilled. And we didn't know who the players were until they redeemed their tickets. And I invented this idea of making it all electronic. Put an electronic display on there, putting a card reader on there, and measuring their play and giving them points. I modeled after the frequent flyer program. American Airlines the year before had just come up with the first frequent flyer promotion. You earn miles when you fly. You flow 5,000 miles, well, you have 5,000 points towards your net ticket. So we just said, okay, it's $10 to get a point, a loyalty point. Then you can redeem those loyalty points for whatever. And that's what started the whole electronic process that casinos still use today.
That's wild. So the tickets that were popping out, $50, and every one was a Chuck E. Cheese. And I've got 3 boys that are at Chuck E. Cheese age, so I'm very familiar with those. Was that from your company as well, or you saw that and you're like, this can be way better, and that's when you started working on the electronic system?
No, we made the first ticket dispensers for slot machines. There were certainly ticket dispensers for other purposes, but we were the first ones to attach them to the coin switch of a slot machine and count the coins and then cause a ticket to come out.
So, I mean, that seems like a huge breakthrough. And then, so was that something that you were thinking of when you were working at the casino and be like, all right, I think I got something here, and you're tinkering at home and then you launch it? What was that kind of, that's a big step for a lot of people, is going from an employee to launching your product.
It is. And what for me, that was not the first step. For me, it was a progressive jackpot system. At this little casino, Mr. Size, I was working with Norman, and this company came in and showed a progressive jackpot system. A progressive jackpot measures all the credits being wagered on the game, and they grow and grow and grow, and everybody wants to be the first to win that pot because maybe it's grown from $1,000 to $10,000, and you want to take all that money home with you. So it became this great motivator. And they presented something that was pretty complicated. The microprocessor had just come out, and I was dabbling with those for a while, so I knew something about them. And when this company left with their presentation, Norman turns to me and says, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I think they're building a space shuttle where a Cessna would do the job." And he says, "What do you mean?" I said, I could do almost everything they're doing for a tenth the price, and you're not going to know the difference." And he goes, "Well," he says, "I think that would be a product, but you're not going to build it here." He said, "You got to choose. Do you want to work here, or do you want to start your own business?" And I go, "Oh," and he goes, "Let me give you a hint. Start your own business."
Wow.
Now, and I only had a few $100, but I put the thing together, and off we went. It became very successful.
Now, I'd imagine there's a lot of employers that would have tried to take advantage of you and try to keep a talent like you under their roof. So what a great guy. I think it's a testament to him that he encouraged you
Absolutely.
to take the path.
He was very generous.
Okay, so was he your first customer, or because you mentioned Steve Wentz, you
No.
Okay, so how did that go?
He got fired about 3 months after that because he had gone way over budget on a promotion.
And probably because he let you go. Like, you let John Acres get out of here.
No, it wasn't that. Actually, the funny thing was that for the first 2 years I worked there, nobody knew I worked there because I was underage. I couldn't legally work in the casino. So what Norman would do to pay me is I'd go in every Sunday night and get one of those coin cups. And then we would walk around. This would be 10, 11 o'clock at night. Most people had gone home by then. They were heading back to California. And he would open up the slot machines one by one, look inside, and each one of them had a hopper with coins in it to pay the player. And some of them would be almost out of coins. Some would be just chock full. And if the machine was chock full, he'd reach in and take like 10 or 20 silver dollars out, put it in my cup, and we'd go machine to machine until I was fully paid. I was getting paid by then $300 a week, which was more than my dad was making, and I was getting it in cash. I didn't even know that you were supposed to not get it in cash. I didn't know you were supposed to pay taxes on this stuff. I didn't know any of that. But we did this for 2 years before the owner found out, and he wasn't mad. He just goes, "We got to make this legal." Fortunately, I just turned 21, and so they put me on the payroll for a while. But that's how I was
That's hilarious.
Getting paid.
All right, so he encouraged you. He's like, "Hey, John, you got to do it. Start your own business." You do. You're making. I guess, how far along were you when you decided to leave? Like, did you have a product and you're already knocking on doors selling it, or
all I had was the idea?
Oh yeah, it was the idea. Okay.
So I had the idea, and I had about $800 saved up, and put together what parts I would use and started building one. I built a demonstration, showed it to Andy Tompkins, who owned the Lady Luck downtown, and he liked it.
And you knew him from the lunches you'd be out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Norman, he says, look, we're not in the market for this. This is not right for us right now, but I'll introduce you to some people that it might be right for. And so he introduced me to Andy Tompkins, and he introduced me to Ray Silvestri out at the Aladdin, and then he introduced me to Steve Wynn. And all three became Progressive Jackpot customers. And from there, the relationship with Steve Wynn to provide the progressives is what got me the business to build the ticket dispensers. And then that's what got me the idea to build the electronic player tracking.
Now with, so Steve Wynn, was it, well, one, I guess when you met him, he's early in his career. Was there something different about him that you're like, this guy's?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. He knew what he wanted. He was very committed, had no self-doubt, had no worries about being wrong. If he was wrong, he would just rip it out and do it again. I remember working with him in Atlantic City, and they'd done this atrium, this entryway, and had trees, live trees, and had exotic birds flying around. And the problem was the birds kept dying. So you come in on a Monday morning, there'd just be dead birds laying there. And after a few cycles, this isn't so good. So they took out the birds, and now Steve Wynn, this was on a Thursday afternoon, he says, look, no more birds, get those trees out of here. And he left Thursday evening. He came back Monday morning, trees were still there. He got a chainsaw and cut them down. When he decided he wanted something changed, he wanted it changed. Just boom, boom. And he was always gracious to me. He paid well. He was considerate. The very first project I proposed to him was the progressive jackpot system. And I said, look, I think it was like a $35,000 deposit. And he ordered up a check right there. We had no documentation at all, just a handshake. And I'd only been talking to him for maybe an hour, and he's paid me this money. And he gets the check and he hands it to me. He says, listen, he says, you can do a couple things with this check. He says, you can take it and go out and gamble, drink, whatever, blow it, not build what you said. And, that's okay. I'm not going to sue you. I'm not going to come after you. I'll just make sure that you never work in this town again. He says, on the other hand, you could take this check and you could build me what you told me you could build. And if you do that, you're going to have a ton of business and you're going to make a lot of money. Now, let's see what you can do. And that was it.
Wow.
That was the whole contract right there. And I built it. It worked. Everybody else saw that it worked. And all of a sudden, as he predicted, I had a long, long line of customers. Then we started doing the ticket dispensers. By this time, I've got like 40-some employees. And then the electronic player tracking came along and ended up selling the company to IGT.
Wow. Well, I mean, there's a big, and then I sold it to IGT. I mean,
the whole thing from the time I started the company until I sold it was 3 years.
Stop. Really? That was it?
That was it. So
okay.
From progressive jackpots only through the invention of the electronic player tracking through the sale of the company in 3 years.
That's insane. I had no idea it was that rapid of an ascent. So, okay. So you got your first customer, and then Steve Wynn was one of the early customers. Mm-hmm. And then the ticket dispenser was the first one at Steve Wynn. So you have 250 patents. So obviously you got a lot of ideas. Were these just ideas? You're like, hey, Steve, how about this? What do you think? He's like, yep, here's another check. Like, go build it. Or how did the next products you launched?
Well, the player tracking was, it was kind of born out of the deficiencies of the tickets. Mm-hmm. To see what was wrong with the tickets, what the casinos needed, and just looking for a way to reduce the frictions they faced, to enhance the player experience. And to me, the evolution from paper to electronic was perfectly natural. Now, once we did that, then the casinos started grabbing it, and they started doing all kinds of fantastic things with it. They're the ones that came up with the idea of dividing players into tiers, a whole range of other things. But without question, that card and that loyalty relationship drove business, still drives business. There's nothing like loyalty.
And so you're obviously proficient, prolific in developing new products. And you have a lot of patents. Now, how early, like who gave you was there somebody that was like, hey, you're inventing a lot of cool stuff, you need to patent this? Was that something you already knew that you should be doing? How did you become such a prolific patent holder?
I'm not all that smart. And I was under the belief from talking to Norman and other people that patents couldn't be had in gambling because one of the old prerequisites of patent was it had to be for the social good, and gambling was considered to be illicit. So patents in gambling weren't something out of the gate that everybody did. I didn't get interested in patents until I just started Acres Gaming, I sold my first company was called EDT, Electronic Display Technology.
And that was the Progressive Jackpots. EDT.
That was Progressive Jackpots and the invention of the player track.
Okay.
Sold that company to IGT. I started another company called Mycon. And that was a newer kind of progressive jackpot. Mycon comes from a contraction of two names. Mike Stone was my partner, and I'm John. So my wife came up with the idea that everybody liked Japanese sounding names. So Mikohn. I wanted to be first, but that would be J-O followed by a K-E. And that didn't work so well. So,
that's a joke.
So it became Mycon. We did that for a couple of years. I sold my share of Mycon to Mike Stone and started Acres Gaming. Still had not even thought about doing a patent. We started doing progressive jackpots on table games, and we got sued by a group called Caribbean Stud over a patent that they had. And we lost. The judgment was $35,000, but the legal fees were $870,000. So we felt like, well, look, we're going to learn something here. Either we're going to beat this patent or we're going to learn that we need to start patenting. So we filed for our first patent in 1992. Didn't do anything in patents for my first 20 years in gaming. And all the 250, I think might be 270 now, has been since 1992.
Wow. Okay. And so is Acres Gaming, as it were in 1992, is that still the entity that you have today with the new products?
No, we took Acres Gaming public. As you said in the introduction, we sold Acres Gaming to IGT in 2003. We were publicly traded for 10 years while I was the majority stockholder. And then we sold it to IGT for that $143 million. They continue to sell the children of that system today. Our product was called Acres Advantage. Today, IGT is selling it as IGT Advantage.
Wow.
And so sold the company in 2003. There's a lot of litigation in there with IGT in between over Wheel of Fortune, Wheel of Gold. But long story short, we got out. And then a couple of years after, I thought I was going to retire. About a year after I'd been off, a friend of mine, Bob Luciano, was working at Bally Technologies, the game manufacturer, what is now Light and Wonder.
Yeah.
And they were sued over these wheel patents by IGT. Now, at Acres Gaming, we actually came up with prior art that was beating the IGT patents, which is one of the big reasons they wanted to buy us. Mm-hmm. They wanted to buy us to overcome that issue, and they wanted to buy us to get the patents that we had there. We had like 18, 19 really good patents. So they were now suing Bally Technology, and Bob says, hey, can you come and help us? And IGT had never gotten any kind of non-disclosure or non-compete from me personally, so I was free to go do that. I took all the prior art we had, and we ended up invalidating the IGT patents. Bally Technologies was close to death then. And a lot of the IGT people were going around saying, oh, we're going to put them out of business. We're going to get $1 billion judgment. And once we got that patent overturned, then Bally could really start to feature their wheels. And they did very, very well with that. But that issue there, that patent fight on behalf of Bally Technologies, I was simply their expert witness, got me to realize again that the casinos were falling behind the rest of the world in technology. By the time this patent suit was over, it was 2008, I'm sorry. In 2007, the Apple came out with their iPhone. And when I saw that, it was plain as day that would change everything. That it created this portal window into any world you wanted it to go to. And I wanted to bring that into the casinos. Trouble was the casinos had just gone through this massive expansion. When I started in '72, only Nevada allowed casinos. By 2003, casinos were being legalized everywhere, especially on tribal casinos. So when the gaming companies had to expand, they by definition had to hire inexperienced people. And they would say to them, here's a rule book. We're licensed. Don't deviate from the rule book. Here's how you open the doors. Here's how you close them. Here's how you do your accounting. Don't try to get creative at all. Just keep it going. And so the mentality of creativity and adjustment started to change. It went from one of risk taking, if you will, to one of risk avoidance. And that's partly too, just with any larger business. When you're small and you have little to lose, and you have individual powerful people like a Steve Wynn or Jackie Gone or a Benny Binion, those guys can decide whatever they want. And even if they're wrong, they're not going to get fired. Yeah. They don't even think about it, right? They're just going to go in and say, here's what I want now. By God, we're going to do it. Well, now you're replaced with corporations, and there's chains of command, and there's processes, and it's fair that they do that, because when you go from a 500 machine casino to a 2,000 machine casino to a 3,000 machine casino, and go to running 10 casinos instead of one, the scale of it creates all kinds of problems for you. So you try to regiment. That regimentation, though, tends to squeeze out innovation. And what's happened is that we've forgotten Norman's lesson. We've forgotten that we're here to deliver emotional gratification, to sell esteem. We think, and I think that one of the best and worst inventions ever was the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet lets you do all kinds of mathematical calculations very quickly, but it's great at expressing numbers and facts. It's horrible at expressing emotion. It's horrible at understanding a player's satisfaction with the product. And what's happened is the casinos, out of simplicity, out of the need to grow and to scale and to manage and stay regulated correctly, they ceded their loyalty relationships with the players to the game manufacturers. Now people come into the casino and they're loyal to the Aristocrat Dragon Link machine, or to the Buffalo game, or to the Wheel of Fortune game. And as casinos allow this to happen, the casino brands themselves become nothing more than shopping malls. They each hold the very same products as the other. And they think that the way to draw people back is to give them more money. Back when I invented the loyalty systems, the electronic loyalty systems in the 80s, we gave away about 10% of a player's losses back to them as promotions. Now, today, it's up to 30, 35%. We're continuing to try to buy the business. We never can, because no matter how much we give back to the player, we can't allow them to win, or there's no profit left to pay the bills with. I believe that our opportunity is here to use new technology, the iPhone, artificial intelligence, the new system that we've designed, to closely measure in real time everything that a player is doing, and to determine when they face that period of stress. When are they about to leave that machine? When are they fed up? And at that moment, issue a challenge, a bonus, if you will. But instead of a bonus like free play, which we invented back in the 90s, but it's grossly overused now, and free play, which is, Craig, here's $100 of free play. If you come in, you don't have to do anything. That makes it so that you don't come in and you get an offer of free play. You've essentially discounted your product forever. What we want to do now is to replace those, much of the free play offers with challenge offers to say, Craig, hey, next 5 jackpots you hit, I'm going to pay you double. But it just so happens when I tell you that, you've only got credits enough for 1 more game. So you're probably going to have to reach into your pocket in order to chase those double jackpots, right?
Right.
Now, that's no different than what Norman did way back when they opened the machine and let money come out. We're just saying, you don't know what you're going to get unless you keep playing. But you know you're going to win more than you should. You have an unfair advantage. And at the end of the day, when we sell a Steam, we essentially sell the sizzle over the steak. The steak is the money. The sizzle is everything around it. It's the smell, it's the sound, it's the service, it's all the things that through which that steak is delivered to you that makes it feel bigger than it is. And so for casinos, it's the chance to win more, the unfair advantage, the almost win. I saw other people win. It could be me next. The celebrations, the consolations. Those are the things that we've left behind in the name of efficiency, but those are the things that cause people to reach into the pocket and spend more. Our opportunity is to use electronic technology to bring that back.
And so it sounds there's 2 different parts. There's probably more, but what I picked up on was there's the one where you're tracking and you're uncovering like these stress moments where there's something different about their betting pace or their amount that you, through analysis, you can figure out, oh, this is a pivotal moment. Then you deliver the right reward or challenge to get them to keep playing. So I guess 1, how is this something that's brand new, the part about tracking these pivotal moments? And then 2, how do you deliver those challenges? Maybe you could tell us about, I'm assuming that's part of your the newest products you're releasing.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us about that.
So what we want to do is we know that labor is hard for a casino to acquire, it's hard for a casino to control, and it's expensive. So we want to make everything as automated as possible. And fortunately for us, all of society is becoming used to that automation. We all carry our phones with us every day. We're used to, instead of visiting a teller at a bank, just handling our banking by typing in some numbers. So it's not a denial of service. In a lot of ways, people prefer that. What we're striving to do is to do most of these evaluations automatically. The old way was gather data, have some analyst look at the data, and decide what kind of promotion or program to do across all players, maybe divided into tiers, and that's what you did. Our new way is, let's gather the data about what you're doing right now. Our new system, can tell exactly what you're doing within a half a second of the time that you do. Now, I can attach an artificial intelligence evaluator to that, which we've done. It says, oh, Craig's under stress. If chances are, if we don't give him something right now, he's going to quit playing for the night, maybe quit playing forever. So the system then decides in the next half a second, I'm going to give Craig 5 double jackpots. Now that message gets automatically sent out to your machine, either to your phone or to the display on the machine, and you see it, and now you can engage in it. 0 labor cost. At the same time, though, this system is watching you play. If you hit a big jackpot, we will dispatch a person when they're available to come over and say, Craig, I just heard about your big jackpot. Congratulations. Or if we see that you are under some stress and that you have already spent what appears to be your affordable budget, we might send somebody over and say, hey, Craig, how you been? Haven't seen you for a while. Why don't you come have a drink with me? I'm buying. And the idea is to get you away from that machine, because allowing you to grossly overspend is an injustice to you and a bad business decision for the casino. We want you as a happy customer for a long time. If we encourage you or allow you to overspend and you go home and you're embarrassed in front of your family's disappointed, that doesn't do anything for your esteem, and it means that you're far less likely to come back, and it makes your family mad at me, the casino. They're not mad at you, they're going to eventually blame the casino. So we want to step in, we want to understand each individual. Everybody's in a tier of 1. What is it that perturbs you? What is it that excites you? Some people need bigger jackpots spread more apart. Other people need lots of little pays. We can tune this automatically to each and every player without any human evaluation and drive for maximum spend.
And so from a practical perspective, so a casino executive's hearing this and they agree with everything and they're like, yes, we need that. What's the delivery mechanism? Is it something, maybe you can talk through like how do you a casino implement that?
Well, and that's a trick right now because it's so new. It takes years and years and years and years to get all the regulatory approvals you need and to gain the trust with everybody that it's really going to work. And whatever we do has to work across several generations of slot machines. It's not uncommon to go into a casino and find them still running a slot machine that's 25 years old because there's a group of players that really like that machine and they don't want to play anything else. So
they still want their own tickets. They want their own.
So we have to make a technology that works across everything. Our first customer was Penn Entertainment. They did not want what we're selling. They wanted cashless wagering. And one of the things we designed our system to do is to work alongside anybody else's system. Everybody else's system, you have to rip out the first one and install the second one. We're the first one that can run in the background. So Penn has 40-some casinos across the country that they had acquired through acquisition. About 40% of them run a Light and Wonder player tracking system, and 60% of them run an Aristocrat player tracking system. And so Penn goes to Aristocrat and says, hey, we want to do cashless gaming. Aristocrat says, great, we'd be glad to build that for you. And they say, but we want all of our properties to work just the same, including the ones over here in Light and Wonder. No problem. Just replace Light and Wonder with our stuff and it'll work the same all across. Then they go to Light and Wonder and they say, hey, we want to have a consistent experience. And Light and Wonder says, no problem. Just replace all that Aristocrat stuff with ours. We were in there saying, look, we have this data. We have this rapid ability to communicate. We have the ability to add credits for challenges at any time. And they go, yeah, maybe that's great. But what we want right now is we just want cashless. Can you run your system in the background across both kinds of systems, which we could, and can you deliver credits to the credit union? And can you interface with the payment system? In this case, it was Every that was providing it. We go, yes, yes, yes. So we built the first one for Penn. It worked. Now that system, those electronics are in just over 40,000 slot machines in the Penn empire. And we've sold in several other casinos since then too. But we got a lot of our technical regulatory approvals in 21 states. In fact, we got licenses in 21 states for Penn. That took a long time, cost millions of dollars. But we have to build up, there's all this stuff you have to build up that kind of holds the tip of the iceberg out of the water. If the tip of the iceberg is all these bonuses, it's got to have this big platform of support beneath it. And it's all got to be regulatorily approved. So we're just really getting to the point where we can start to implement the true purpose of the system in the first place. Now, there's always two steps in the sales process. One is, what's in it for me? You're the buyer. If there's nothing in it for you, you're not going to buy it. And if I convince you that there is something in it for you, your next question is, why should I believe that you can provide that to me? Maybe you're just making it up. Maybe you're conning me. So we have to go through those two steps. What's in it for you? That's hard for a lot of casinos to understand because it's so different. They have to change how they're doing things. They have to stop doing their marketing the way they've always done it. They've got to take control of the loyalty relationship. Those are big decisions. But then they have to trust us. They have to say, how do we know that you can support our tens of thousands of machines? Will you answer the phone and fix the problem at 3 o'clock in the morning? And of course, over the past few years with Penn and others, we've proven that we can do that. So a lot of the doubters that were there 3 years ago are now accepting of these ideas. And just like with our first electronic player tracking back in the EDT days, and then the revolutionary electronic player tracking that we did at Acres Gaming, it takes a long time. The hardest thing is getting the second customer. There's always somebody that's first that wants to help design the system. They'll take that. You can always find that first one. The second one, though, they're not going to get the glory of being the first. They're not going to get all the customizations they want, but they've got to make that decision to go too. The second, third, and fourth sales are always the hardest for us. Then, if it works, then people go from being afraid to use it to being afraid not to use it because they see these guys moving ahead. And we're about that inflection point now where we're starting to show enough benefits that people are starting to be afraid not to use it. And that's when the sales blossom.
That's an exciting time to be in.
Yes.
So I know this is gone. I feel like I could go 2 more hours because I'm just, I love hearing your stories. I go back and talk about the 70s and 80s more. I mean, I'm just fascinated by the whole thing. But one thing I did want to ask, I guess you've obviously interacted with a ton of marketers. You have just unique insights. I mean, are there any tidbits that you can give to marketers today to really, I don't know, what do you see that marketers are maybe neglecting that maybe they should be focused on more?
That's a good question because, you and I were at a marketing conference a couple of weeks ago, right? And we heard a lot of hosts, we heard a lot of marketers with some great ideas, but they have to work in tandem with the IT departments. They have to work in tandem with the slot department. And somehow the technology has to solve all 3 at once. And so we're helping them to understand how to overcome. A lot of times the marketer looks at our stuff and go, well, there's no way we can do that. Our casino won't allow it, but they've never asked. And it's very hard for them to know what to ask. It's hard for that marketer to express a technology in terms that IT can understand, which is the protection. So we have to go in there and do that. Then we have to go talk to the slot operations people to convince them that they can run this equipment efficiently and effectively. It's getting everybody tuned up. But I think that what we have to get everybody to ask themselves is, are you happy with your current revenues? And I would suggest that you shouldn't be, because when we plot out revenues from, and I just did this a couple months ago, from 1992 to 2023. From 1992 to 2008, revenues grew after inflation by 283% over that time. From 2008 until now, adjusted for inflation, gaming revenues across the country have fallen by 5%. A lot of people think that casinos are setting records. They are not. They're setting records only if it's not adjusted for inflation. The dollars that we bring in are smaller and smaller every year. It takes more and more of them to pay for that labor. It takes more and more of them to pay for those taxes and the building and the electricity. And we've lost sight of that. Now, a lot of times people are afraid of that because that takes them from being proud and saying, look, my revenues are up to 3% this year, to saying, oh my gosh, they're not. And what we got to realize is, even as our revenues have dropped by 5%, the capacity of the typical American consumer to spend the money in their pocket has grown by 25% from 2008 until now. They have more money to spend. So we have effectively lost a 30% market share, or 30% wallet share of the American consumer. Back in 2008, the average American spent 39 cents in a casino for every $100 of income they had. Today, it's 24 cents for every $100. There's lots of room for growth without worry about problem gambling. You could certainly afford to spend 50 cents for every $100 that you bring in instead of 25 cents. That would be a doubling of the revenue for the casinos. It would be a giant opportunity for the whole industry, and our goal is to deliver that.
Well, John, this has been incredible. I wish we had more time. I know how busy you are. Where can casino executives that want to learn more about what you're doing now and kind of the future that you're bringing in, where can they go to learn more?
You can go to, the best thing to do is just to email me at john.acres@acres4.com. That's ACRES, the number 4. We're really just catching up with our websites and things. When you start a company, there's a lot of things that you have to choose between, right? And there's a thing called nailing and a thing called scaling. And when you're doing one, you're not doing the other. And what I want to emphasize is that the traditional players, the IGTs and the aristocrats in those guys, they're smart people, but they're in the scaling business, not in the nailing business. The nailing business is creating a whole new way. My forte has always been the nailing, coming up with that new way and building it in such a way that it can be delivered at scale. So we're just getting there now. So I would ask that the marketers reach out to us. I'll put salespeople in touch with you. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll have a website that's even more ready to go. But right now, we're still at this transition phase.
Well, John, this has been such an enjoyable conversation. I've enjoyed this immensely. I can't say enough. So thank you so much for your time. And everybody, put in the comments questions. I'll forward it on to you. Maybe we can do another follow-up in a while.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you.
Craig. I love talking to you.
All right, we'll do it again.
Take care. Bye.